Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the live stream for Chelsea versus Manchester City and player ratings. And unfortunately, Chelsea were undone by some Kevin De Bruyne magic at the Etihad as we fell to a 1-0 defeat and dropped 13 points off the top of the Premier League table. Plenty to dive into, not too bad defensively, shocking going forward. And joining me to go through all of this and do some player ratings as well is journalist Jamie Wilkinson. Jamie, welcome back. Thanks for your time again. Appreciate it as always. It was a disappointing afternoon today. In reality, I want to take it right back to the start. You were disappointed with Thomas Tuchel today in terms of you feel he got it completely wrong. What aspects do you feel that he got wrong today? I presume you want to start with the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think it's important to say before we go into that point that Tuchel is the best manager we've had in recent memory, and he's the right man to take Chelsea forward. But that's not to say he's above criticism. You know, he conceded his mistakes that he made in the reverse fixture at Stamford Bridge in his press conference leading up to this game. Said that Chelsea were too passive and, he got it wrong. And you just kind of really expected a reaction today. You expected more like the Chelsea against Man City that we saw towards the tail end of last season that won us the Champions League. But it was just nothing like it. And I think for me, that just boils down to, you can start from the decision not to go with the 4-2-2-2, which was seemingly serving us so well and going back to a 5 at the back. But the front three, for me, it just didn't seem like the right fit. I'm not sure Lukaku was the right player to start in the game through the middle. I think the general consensus among Chelsea fans pre-game was that Havertz should have started there because we're so much more fluid and unpredictable. And then flanking Lukaku, Pulisic and Ziyech, for me, was just a bit of a puzzling selection.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, given, as we refer back to that blueprint, when we played Manchester City last season 3 times, winning in the FA Cup semi-final, winning at the Etihad in the league as well, and winning that Champions League final, of course. You looked at the blueprint we had, and it was Timo Werner's pace. He did actually link up well with Hakim Ziyech, but Mason Mount's high pressing with kind of Kai Havertz in the middle, and it was quite fluid and interchanging. And you sort of think, okay, look, Pep's going to know it's going to be wise to that, but it's what's worked for us. And we haven't played with a physical focal point at the top end of the pitch against Manchester City. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Like many Chelsea fans, I'm not Timo Werner's biggest fan. I think he's massively under-delivered and time again fails to perform to the level expected of him. But I felt that this was a game that perhaps with City's high line and you can get in behind, you can get at City defensively, that it would have been tailor-made for him. I mean, how surprised were you that he didn't start?
Yeah, I think it would have made sense. It's easy saying that in hindsight, but I just feel like Lukaku just wasn't going to be the right fit because it's not news that he's a penalty box striker. Doesn't necessarily have the pace to run in behind. Doesn't necessarily have the touch and link up ability that Havertz has. So it was just kind of considering the reluctance to put the ball into the box today from Chelsea's forward players, it just kind of seemed as though Lukaku was a wasted man. And that's before even going into his own individual performance, which I thought was poor.
I mean, yeah, in terms of the lineup, then really just the front three was that kind of your main gripe. I think the rest of it, to be honest, was given we went 3 at the back, we weren't going to play Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic at wing back with Aspie and a 3. So Malang Sarr, I felt, deserved to start given his recent performances, particularly in the 2 legs of the Carabao Cup, alongside Silva and Rudiger. I think the rest of the lineup's fine, but I agree the makeup of the front 3 was certainly an odd one. But having said that, the game itself, it wasn't a great game in terms of there wasn't a lot of opportunities. It wasn't free flowing, and for how poor we were going forward, we defended very well. And we limited Manchester City to a very small number of chances. Jack Grealish should definitely do better with that chance towards the end of the first half. Kepa saves it with his thigh. But other than that, maybe a couple of free kicks and not much else more. So I feel we defended very well. And I mean, would you agree with Tuchel's assessment at the end of the game, mate, that we actually probably on the balance didn't deserve to lose this match? We were just undone by a moment of brilliance.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an argument. the Grealish chance was an error from Kovacic. I don't really think you can put individual errors down to, the setup or the manager's selection or the tactics or whatever. I think how Tuchel set us up to defend did work. If anything, I think that we potentially had the clearer openings, but were just so sloppy with our passing and our final ball in that final third of the field. And the thing is with City and with players like Kevin De Bruyne is that they only need a yard and they only need an opportunity to punish you. And De Bruyne, obviously, formerly one of ours, so it's a bit of pill to swallow, but what a player.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. And, it just had to be him. And, Kepa, like, I'm seeing things like pointless things like, Mendy might have saved that. Yeah, he might have done, but we knew he wasn't going to play this game. So it's just pointless. And, Kepa, I think, potentially could have got there. You see, he was like going to go one way and he had to shuffle across quickly to get to the other. If he hadn't taken that step in the opposite direction, he could have made it. But let's be honest, I thought he had a good game anyway. And you can't do much about a strike like that. But let's get into the main crux of today's issues, the attacking play. It was, as we said, it was non-existent. It was awful. I mean, we've obviously, as Chelsea fans, we know that we're not the best going forward, and we've struggled a lot, particularly in all those draws at home, with our attacking play. I don't know about you, mate, but this was one of the worst attacking displays I've seen from a Chelsea side for as long as I can remember. It was awful.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm glad that we've done this review so many hours away from the full-time whistle, because I was absolutely enraged come full-time. And to be honest with you, I still am. Because Pulisic, we've often, I don't want to be too critical of him because he's a Chelsea player and he tries his best, but we've often spoken about, the player he could be if he was injury-free. Now, I don't really see any negative in terms of the fitness, injury, COVID aspect on Pulisic right now. So really, we should be expecting his maximum performance level. Now, this is one game, so we can't judge him off one game exactly. But on this, in terms of this performance, he was pretty non-existent. And I think Chelsea fans could have predicted that pre-kickoff because he often is in games of this nature. Ziyech is a bit of a lottery, obviously a very talented player, an absolute wand of a left foot, but sometimes can be wasteful. He can be greedy. Today, he definitely was wasteful. There was one instance in particular where he could have set Lukaku free and he got the pass wrong. Wasn't even that difficult a pass to play. For a player of his standard, he got it wrong. And then as for Lukaku, I mean, I'm overdressed for this live stream. I'm wearing a shirt. I got the bags under my eyes. That's because I've done a hard day's work today. Now, I think Lukaku, with a couple of sprays from the Lynx Africa he got for Christmas, he could have gone straight down the nightclub in Manchester because he can't have broken a sweat out there today. And that's the issue, isn't it? If Lukaku has a bad performance, it's fine. We go again next week. But he doesn't look like he's trying. He doesn't look like he's in the game. He doesn't look like he's really fighting to prove to Chelsea fans that interview, was just a rush of blood to the head. It really does feel like his heart is not in it at Chelsea, and maybe he does want to go to Inter Milan. You can't judge that off one performance, but his performances on the pitch is all we have to go off. That's what he said we should use as evidence, to prove that he does want to be here and he's committed to the cause. But it's just proven the complete opposite right now for me. It looked like he didn't want to be there today.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Before we get into Lukaku, I just want to touch on the attacking play a little bit more. I just don't get it in terms of, we got a £100 million striker. We got a presence in the box. Why every time today? And it's not just today. It's happened in other games as well. Why, when we get the ball out wide, do we try and play it infield or play it back rather than putting balls into the box? Look, I know Lukaku needs to do more for the cause, but we need to do more for him as well. And, I mean, can you pinpoint as to why, well, particularly today, but just in general, why are our wide players, whether it's Pulisic and Ziyech today, whoever it is, why do we consistently put no balls into the box for Lukaku to try and do something with?
I don't know. And that's the counter argument, isn't it? It's someone like me, I perhaps have been very critical of Lukaku post the interview. But if we're being honest, he hasn't had the kind of service that he would ordinarily desire since coming to Chelsea. And I know Tuchel said in his post-match press conference chat to BT Sport that Lukaku needs to do more for himself, but a striker feeds off service from his teammates. And like you said, we get it to the channels. We seem to get it to a position where we're one pass away from putting the ball into the box, the kind of service that Lukaku could feed off. But there is that reluctance to do it. I don't know if that's a lack of confidence with our wide players, our attacking players, just to, be the one to stick it in the mixer and hope for the best, or whether that is, tactical direction from Tuchel not to do it. But whatever it is, it's not helping Lukaku's cause right now.
No, it's not. And I mean, yeah, it's a problem. And, it's not just today. It's been a problem for a long time. It's been a problem for, as I said, for multiple games, particularly this season, the ones we've drawn at home where we're just not clinical in front of goal. And it doesn't matter what makeup of players it seems to be, the outcome is always the same. But I mean, today was just, we had a couple of opportunities, but decision making as well. I mean, Tuchel referred to chances in the transitions in his post-match presser. And why do you feel that, we supposedly got a world-class squad, some top attacking players, got great reputations, etc., and have done it on occasions for Chelsea. Why do you feel that decision-making in the final third, particularly today, was so poor? So many times we picked the wrong option.
I don't know. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's not a problem for this game.
No.
It's a problem with our attacking players, their profile, and that's kind of how they are. I don't feel like there's a single wide player in our selection options that really has that killer instinct that you could say that the benchmark is Mane and Salah, let's say. But it's been the story at Chelsea for several years with different personnel that we just can't seem to, in the final third, have that killer instinct, find the back of the net, and have considerable goal contributions from out wide, barring Eden Hazard. And it seems silly and counterproductive to always say that, we need to find our Hazard replacement, because we've got to move on. And we shouldn't be relying on the individual brilliance of one player to win us these kind of games. But the board do need to take a look at themselves and consider that the players that they're recruiting that are supposed to be directly contributing to us scoring goals aren't doing it on a consistent basis over different seasons under different management. It baffles me, to be honest. And, we're saying this reflecting on a disappointing performance where they were arguably the main issue. So perhaps it's all amplified. But I don't know about you. I feel like this has been an underlying problem for quite a while.
Yeah, no, it is. And, we were chatting before we came live. We might as well get into it now. Is that before the season, I think myself, a lot of Chelsea fans, thinking this is one of the best squads we've had in a long, long time. But as the season's gone on and injuries have occurred, etc., we've had COVID cases and whatnot, it's become apparent that this squad is horribly unbalanced. It really is. And the makeup of it isn't actually as good as we think it is. I mean, you refer to the attacking players, but I look at it and over the years, we look at what's been successful for Chelsea. Wide players, out and out wingers that score goals. So I look at when we had Robin, Duff, Joe Cole, Sean Wright-Phillips. Okay, Duff, Robin, and Joe Cole outstanding. Wright-Phillips contributed in his own way. We were very successful then. We were very successful with Eden Hazard and someone like Pedro. Even though Hazard's goal numbers actually weren't that great, he didn't score a lot of goals. He would so often pick a game up by the scruff of the neck and just do a moment of magic. I look on this pitch now and in that final third, and for me at the moment, there's no one that I can see that will pick the ball up, go past a few players and put it into the goal, just creating something from nothing. Not a single one of those players does that. And in tight games, you need that. And we just don't have it. So I don't know if we need to perhaps look at signing a different profile of wide player, maybe going back to more of the kind of the Robin, Joe Cole, Duff type out and out wide players, rather than players that are kind of, they're not really wingers, but they're more like a wide forward as such. I mean, Do you feel that we perhaps need to be looking at a different profile of wide player? I know we've been linked with Dembele, who is more of an out-and-out winger, someone exciting that's got skill. Do you feel we need to switch up our profile of wide player that we're actually looking at?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I think if you look at, let's count Werner as a wide player because it's been his best position for us. So let's say Werner, Pulisic, Ziyech, Havertz. That's over £200 million worth of talent, near enough. Now, I wouldn't say that's much of a muchness. They all have their own individual qualities, and I don't think they're all the same kind of player. But I see what your suggestion is, because they all seem to have the same lack of killer instinct, desire to kind of pander to their teammates with a short pass rather than playing the game-changing pass, or performing the game-changing take on, or having a shot towards goal that Hazard might have had from the edge of the box. I don't know if we can entirely blame the profile of players that we're recruiting when we do have several options which are not all exactly the same profile of player, which all seem to be encountering the same problems. Now, what can you look at? You look at the manager. I'm not convinced, because the same problems they're having now under Tuchel are the same problems they were having under Lampard. So, I'm sure the Chelsea board have absolutely no intention of sacking Thomas Tuchel. No. But if they were to do that, they would still have all of these players which can't seem to have that killer instinct and that little bit of star quality that can win us these games in the manner that Kevin De Bruyne did today. And an easy option from a Chelsea fan is to say, let's sell them all and let's start from scratch. The problem is whether we really have faith in our ability to rebuild those attacking options without ending up with the same old problems.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, perhaps a switch of system might benefit us a little bit more, in terms of if we went 4-3-3 instead. Lukaku is the focal point, and then two out-and-out wide players, rather than having players that have to drift inside quite a lot. I mean, there are potential options there, but I mean, this is not just reacting to today, which is particularly poor. This is, as you've touched on, is a problem that's gone back to the Frank Lampard era. It's a problem that has been around a good few years now, and it's something that's going to need to be addressed. I mean, it'll be no surprise to you that today was, the least touches and least shots we've had on goal in a Thomas Tuchel Premier League game. I'll just put it up on the screen now. 7 touches in the opposition box and only 4 shots today. Little to no attacking threat offered at all. I mean, let's come on to the main man, Lukaku. He started, rightly or wrongly. Many felt Havertz would have perhaps been better for this game. My big issue, I've been a staunch Lukaku defender, and I will continue to do so, but I'll also criticise him where it's due. And today was poor, and that's okay to be poor, because professional footballers have poor games. What I wasn't happy with today was a distinct lack of effort and a distinct lack of looking like he wanted to be there. The body language was terrible. He was just kind of going through the motions. When he was going up for headers and stuff, he was kind of looked like he was half-heartedly going up for the ball. Look, performance-wise, not good. Has to hold the ball up better and relieve pressure at the top end of the pitch so that we can get up and get out. I thought that was really poor today. The opportunity he had, he should have done better with. But my biggest issue was the body language and the fact that he didn't look like he wanted to be there. Half the time the game's going on, he's just down doing his laces up. And these are the games we signed him for, to make the difference. And we touched on it. Yes, we need to do more for him. He needs to do a lot more for us. As Tuchel said, he needs to try and manufacture a little bit more for himself. But the basic requirement is to, put maximum effort in. And I don't think we can say that of him today.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because on record, Lukaku has already said, maybe not exactly, but heavily suggested that he perhaps doesn't want to be here, or at least didn't want to be here. We weren't his first choice. But, we have to put that behind us at this point. All we can go off is what we're seeing from Lukaku on a football pitch. And I think even if the interview never happened, let's say, and we're just judging Lukaku off of his performance on the pitch for Chelsea previously and today, it still wouldn't be good enough for me. And it's the minimum requirement at Chelsea, at any big club, that you work your backside off. Now, we've had players in the past, let's say Fernando Torres. Fernando Torres, he couldn't buy a goal for love nor money at times in his Chelsea career. You know what? He was always one of the hardest working players on the pitch, and the fans loved him for that. You can make the same case for Timo. Timo wasn't getting the rub of the green last year, but Chelsea fans still warmed to him. That's because when he came off the pitch at the end of the game, he was blowing because he'd been working hard. I just feel like Lukaku, I'm not saying his heart isn't in it. I'm not saying he doesn't want to be at Chelsea, and he didn't want to be at the Etihad today. He wanted to be elsewhere in Milan or in Munich or wherever, but it doesn't look good. His body language isn't right. And I don't know if it is this recent debacle that's just playing on his mind. Maybe he's had some frosty conversations with Tuchel. Maybe the dressing room hasn't taken so well to his interview. We don't know. We don't know the full story. But I just can't help but feel like something's not right and something's not clicking with his teammates, that we're just not seeing the best of him.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen what he can do in a Chelsea shirt, though. He started so well in his first few games, obviously picked up an injury when he was in really good form. They struggled a bit to get back into it. We saw a fantastic half against Aston Villa. Then, obviously, the interview comes, and since then, he's not really performed that well. Look, we still have to back him. He's a Chelsea player. He's our record signing, but he's not immune from criticism. He's not immune from being dropped. And you know, going forwards, on the back of a performance like that, I'd be surprised if he started against Brighton on Tuesday night. I really would be. Because it just wasn't good enough. But it wasn't just him. It was all the attacking players. Dreadful.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because when you think that, once we get these games out of the way, Brighton, Tottenham, whatever, we're off to the Club World Cup. Yeah. Of course, we want to win that. That goes without saying. We come back and we're into the Champions League.
Yeah,
you know, we have a game that is winnable. A tie that is winnable, but we can't be complacent, and then we kick on from there. And we can't achieve our ambitions this season. The title's gone, whatever. Yeah. But we still, as you said earlier, there's a lot of trophies up for grabs here. I don't think we can get the maximum out of this season without Romelu Lukaku performing and scoring goals. I feel like the easy option is to relegate him to the bench and be like, you know what, that wasn't good enough. We set a higher standard, put Havertz up there. But I feel like Tuchel has no choice but to play him into form, because I think that's going to be the way that he's going to get Lukaku back on side. If Lukaku, he's the kind of player that, you know, it will annoy him that people are saying bad things about him, and all the abuse he got at United, he hated it, and he wanted to prove people wrong, prove that he was this accomplished player, this world-class striker. I think there's no person out there that is going to want Romelu Lukaku performing well and scoring goals on a consistent basis than Romelu Lukaku himself. So on that basis, I think Tuchel has to persevere with him, whether it needs to be tactical tweaks behind the scenes or whatever. Something needs to be done to get us cooking again. But I can't see a benefit from relegating him to the bench.
No, I can't either. I think it's almost just spiting ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, there's no options on the bench that you would think, oh, yeah, so-and-so will come in and he'll definitely do better. Because apart from Mason Mount, not a single attacking player has impressed at all this season.
No, and that's exactly the point. You know, we can say that Havertz or Werner should have started ahead of Lukaku. But if we're being honest with ourselves, there's a pretty good chance that we would be sat here, you know, moaning about a poor performance from Havertz or Werner if they were included in the starting 11. We could be saying, why has Tuchel dropped our £97 million striker for arguably the biggest game of the season? So, yeah, I think we don't have an option. We need Lukaku to perform well for Chelsea and score goals for Chelsea.
Yeah, I think it is as simple as that. As frustrating as it is, you know, we just got to persevere and stick at it, and hopefully, you know, something's going to click. But again, I think another issue is the fact that we probably don't know what our best front three is. And that's probably causing issues as well, because the personnel at the top end of the pitch is constantly changing. So it's difficult to strike up little partnerships together, because it's always switching. But I just wanted to move on to away from the attacking side of things. Another thing that slightly surprised me today was, why did you feel we didn't press? Because there didn't seem to be any pressing today. I've noticed as well that we didn't play out from the back either. We were going long a lot of the time. And then when we were playing playing it out, we'd get it forward a little bit, and then we'd play it back again and allow City to press us high up the pitch, which got us into a few issues.
Yeah, I think it's difficult when you play Man City because I don't think there's a better team in the world when it comes to passing out of your press. And I think Tuchel has probably learnt that at this point. Maybe that's why we were so passive at the bridge. We don't know. But on the flip side, as we were so passive at the bridge, and as Tuchel did reference that in his press conference and acknowledge his mistake, I did expect us to be a little bit more proactive today. So it did puzzle me a little bit that we were kind of allowing City to come onto us. And don't get me wrong, it's not as if they had loads of chances to get in behind us. We remain compact. But this was a game that we needed to win. You know, a draw was no good to us. And Tuchel said we deserved a draw. Perhaps we did. Perhaps if De Bruyne doesn't fire that one home and it finishes 0-0, we say, you know what, it's a good result. But really, it's no good for Chelsea because this game was our final chance, in my opinion, to keep even the faintest title hopes alive. So it is a little bit bizarre that we weren't more proactive and positive and kind of hunting that ball down and taking the game to City and being, you know what, we're going to come here to your ground again and we're going to do a job on you. We're going to take them 3 points and we're going to try and seize the initiative in this title race.
Yeah, I felt we turned up and we kind of were just almost playing for the point. We'd have been happy to get the draw, and maybe we could nick something from a set piece and hold out. Then that was perhaps our best chance of getting something from the game. But as you say, where the title race is done now. I mean, before we get into the player ratings, but I don't want to sound reactionary or anything. But are you concerned now with the amount of points we've dropped? Before today, it was 6 draws in our last 11 games. It's basically 7. We have 7 from 12 that we've not won. So we've won, 5 of our last 12? Are you concerned that we're getting dragged into a battle for the top 4, considering that teams below us have got games in hand from postponements, etc.? We also go to the Club World Cup. If results go against us, there's a possibility we could come back from the Club World Cup and we could be outside the top 4.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think at this point we're not getting dragged into a fight for the top 4. We're very much in it. That third spot looked like it would be the absolute minimum at one point, didn't it? Even if Liverpool and City were threatening to break away from us or outperforming us, you kind of felt that there wasn't really any possibility of us missing out on Champions League in a season that we were supposed to go for the title. But as you say, the postponements and us going to the Club World Cup, it's kind of skewed the table a little bit. So it's not going to be long before we have teams breathing down our necks and we're like, hang about, we need to stop dropping points here. Not that we shouldn't have a while back, but we do need to be wary now because the top 4 is the absolute minimum requirement. And we absolutely scraped it by the skin of our teeth last season. And nobody wants to be in that position again. We do need to reassert ourselves and, beat Tottenham in the league game later this month and try and get a little bit of a cushion there.
Yeah, I mean, I just brought a table up on screen now. You can obviously see that we're a point ahead of Liverpool. We've got 2 in hand. They're probably going to go above us. West Ham have got a game in hand. We're 6 ahead of them. A couple of games in hand on Arsenal.
And I think an important point here as well is look at the form. Tottenham have had their problems, but they are on the up under Conte and Arsenal. I mean, their improvement has been well documented under Arteta recently. West Ham, 3 wins in a row there. You wouldn't expect them to hold out all the way towards the last stage of the season, but they did last year. So, it's just the trajectory that worries me.
I mean, you even look at Man United. All right, they've been dreadful this season.
Yeah.
It's all ifs and buts. But if they were to win those 2 games in hand, they wouldn't be a million miles off us either. So look, it's not panic stations by any means. But as you say, it could be. And you look at our form. It's one win in the last 5. Whatever way you look at it, that isn't good enough when you're going for the league. You would never see a Man City go for a patch of one win in 5 games. Look, don't get me wrong, they'll lose the odd game and drop the odd points here and there, but you would very rarely see it in back-to-back games.
No, it's quite remarkable, and I suppose we have COVID postponements to thank for that. On the back of the dodgy December and the kind of not so fantastic start to January, we're still in second place. So I suppose that's testament to how well we started. But we need to try and make sure that buffer that we have, it stays there and it doesn't shrink any further. And more importantly, when we have these 6-pointers, we absolutely have to win them.
Yeah.
When we play Spurs, when we play United again, when Arsenal, we need to win these games, and that way we really won't get dragged into the mix.
Yeah, just last thing before we get into the player ratings, I just want to bring this up. We obviously touched on the team selection earlier. I want to talk to you about the subs. What did you make of the substitutions today? And obviously, we went like for like with a double change, Ziyech and Pulisic off for Hudson-Odoi and Werner, but we didn't change the system until about 10 or so minutes from the end, where Mount came on for Alonso. We went to a back four. Two things. One, I feel that was far too late. And I also feel that Mount should have been on a long way before 10 minutes before the end. Do you feel Tuchel got the subs wrong today?
Yeah. On Mount, I would like to assume that there is a niggle or something there, because I thought he should have started the game.
Yeah.
And then I thought he probably should have come on at half time. And then 50 minutes, 60 minutes went by and the subs just came too late. It was a surprise to me that we didn't do something pretty drastic at half time, because granted it was, 0-0, but we were really poor. And you felt like it was only a matter of time before City made a breakthrough. And changing personnel in the wide areas without changing the direction and, the strategy, what we're trying to achieve, the service we're trying to apparently provide for Lukaku, it just did seem kind of, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? Like, if we were to make drastic changes that could really help us at least test Ederson in the latter stage of the game. But I think changing the personnel in the wide areas, it was too little too late.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, arguably, that front three that started the game could have no complaints if all three of them were taken off at half time, because they were
not at all.
They were all awful.
Yeah.
Let's just bring this up. I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, mate. Do you feel that? I mean, I felt this in a few games this season. Do you feel that it's Tuchel's often too late with the subs and perhaps too reactionary, and only change things when it's a problem rather than changing things to prevent an issue?
See, here's the thing. Now, Gary Neville is someone that's been very vocal on this, talking about modern football managers and how they don't really have a plan B. They make sure plan A works.
Yeah.
Now, Tuchel is a tactician by trade. He's a strategist. And I think his obsession is with finding the little things that aren't working, aren't operating properly in our system, and making small amendments. And in his head, maybe the picture is that they have a positive effect and we go on to win the game. But I think today is, I wouldn't say it's too common a theme that he gets his substitutions wrong and he gets them too late. But there have been instances. And I don't even think today was reactive. Because if he was being reactive, he would have reacted earlier. Yeah. I think today he got to the point where he ran out of ideas, and you can't blame him against arguably the best team in the world and arguably the best manager in the world. And that's the thing. It's absolutely fine for Tuchel to lose against Man City. It's fine for Chelsea to lose against Man City. But all we can do is reflect on hindsight and suggest what could have gone better had Tuchel made different decisions. And perhaps we can be critical of him that his subs came too late, and maybe he swears by the system a little bit too much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd also think that we do have other options. I would have quite liked to have seen us perhaps change system a little bit earlier rather than the last 10 minutes, because what we were doing wasn't working. I think we could have maybe gone 3-5-2. We could have gone to 4 at the back a lot sooner. But I mean, ultimately, I back Tuchel 100%. Is he going to get every decision right? Are fans going to think he's got things wrong? Yes, but that's just the way it kind of goes as a football manager. So I mean, I don't think the tactics were that wrong today. Yes, we could have done a few things differently. I don't think he banked on the attacking players being that poor as a manager. You can't do anything about that. But Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a big issue. Yes, in some games I felt that he could have perhaps made the subs earlier or done something different a little bit earlier on, but ultimately, I don't really think it was. I don't think
We're
it was
being
that
very
bad today.
picky. We're
Yeah,
being
it's
very
quite
picky.
picky, isn't it? Yeah.
And we have to be, because nobody's flawless, and Tuchel has flaws, but he's also very good. He's a fantastic manager, and I think we all recognise that. But yeah, we are perhaps being a little bit picky, but you can understand why, especially in defeat.
Yeah, I mean, just last thing quickly before the ratings. I was going to today to you highlight that despite the steps forward we've made, we're just under a year into the Tuchel project. We're still quite a way off winning the league title and the benchmark that Manchester City are. There's still quite a big class between the two sides. I mean, does that concern you that that doesn't really look like it's closed? I know we beat them in the Champions League final, but over the course of a league season, they are the benchmark, and they seem to be a way ahead of us. I don't like saying that, but the gap seems quite big.
Yeah, a couple of points on that. I think City, in the same way that Liverpool did for a period, they have that robotic consistency where they always find a way. They always win games. They go on these incredible winning streaks that just puts them daylight between them and their rivals. And Chelsea are not quite there yet. I'd like to think that we can get there. I think if we're being honest, there is further investment into the squad that's going to be necessary. But I do think we have the right man to guide us on that. Second point, yes, we beat City in the Champions League final. Yes, it was fantastic. Yes, they have no European Cup and we have two. I think at this point, if Chelsea fans are being honest with ourselves, that's in the past now.
Yeah.
Chelsea want to be winning the league, and we want to be dominating domestically in the same way that City have. Now, it's great that we won the Champions League, and Chelsea fans should celebrate that. And yes, we won when it mattered if we're talking about the Champions League final in Porto. But the next step for Chelsea is to try and bridge the gap between us and City, is to try and have a period of dominance in England like all the great clubs and great managers have had. So I think where we kind of there above City, because we won the Champions League, we beat them, we stopped Aguero having his perfect farewell moment. We're now like, hang about, that's in the past now. We want to be them. We want to be there, and we want to be doing what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I think that is a fair point, and yeah, we've got work to do, and I think for whatever criticisms people have of Manchester City, the amount of money they spend, is that what I will say about their board is when Pep wants something, they go and get it for him. They 100% back him. And I don't think the same can be said of, look, for however good Marina is at getting good deals, getting good bargains, etc., on contracts or getting good deals for selling slightly subpar players, I think you can always say that Chelsea haven't dealt well in the transfer window consistently, and they don't always back the manager. And I think in Thomas Tuchel, we've got someone that is one of the best managers we've had, could eclipse Jose Mourinho if he's given the opportunity to stay for a considerable amount of time. But it's only going to work if if the board back him and give him what he needs, because the blueprint's there. We've got the manager, we've got the infrastructure, we've got the players to a degree, but it requires backing from the board. And I think a lot of fans, if it were to go awry for Tuchel and he ends up leaving on bad terms and the board didn't back him, would find that quite hard to forgive.
Absolutely agree. Tuchel's previously fallen out with those upstairs at previous clubs, and I think he made a point when he came to Chelsea that he was going to try and have a little bit more of a laid back, relaxed attitude towards things, not be so demanding, and just be thankful for what he's given. Now, he was given Lukaku. Was Romelu Lukaku his number one target and only target for the summer transfer window? Let's not count Saul as a top target, considering he was drafted in the last minute of the transfer window on loan. I feel like, if we're being honest, he probably wanted a little bit more in the summer. Exactly who and what positions, that's something only he'd know. I think if we're being honest, this month he would have liked at least one, if not two, wing backs through the door already. Yeah. But he's had none. He hasn't even had Emerson back from the loan that we sent him out on, even though we were offering to pay money. Now, Tuchel's been very easy and laid back and relaxed about it thus far. I fear the day that changes and he becomes frustrated and he thinks, you know what, at another club, maybe I'll get the players I want and maybe I can achieve what I could do here if they were giving me the players that I wanted.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, you look back at some terrible windows we've had, like when Mourinho's been here, not back that window where we had Tal Ben-Haim and Steve Sidwell sign, and it's just like, well, what are we doing? Hopefully we don't get a repeat of that. Let me just bring a couple of things up. Swabstar, love the stream, the chat, appreciate that. Watching from St Kitts in the Caribbean. Well, thanks for tuning in. It's probably a very, very nice place to be. We've covered this. Do you think there's any chance TT gets a chance? Yes, I think there is, but it depends on the board giving him the backing. Because if he doesn't get that, things, as we've seen with previous managers, it could turn sour. Right, let's get into
under no illusions, just on that point.
Yeah,
Klopp doesn't have complete backing from the Liverpool board. No. I think we can use the Wijnaldum contract situation. He wasn't getting what he wanted. Klopp said publicly he wanted him to stay. He went to PSG. Yeah. Kind of feel as though a similar situation's unfolding with Salah. So I think City are a unique case. I think we should try and follow the Liverpool model a little bit more, where Klopp has made the absolute maximum out of the players he has, rather than demanding 2 top quality players for each position.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Let's get into it, mate. Player ratings. We'll rattle through these. Kepa today, I thought he had a good game. Made saves when he was called upon. Looked solid again. I thought the confidence was good. He's definitely had a transformation under Thomas Tuchel. There wasn't a lot he could do about the goal, but I don't think he did an awful lot wrong today. I thought it was defensively, as we touched on, we were pretty good today, and he was a big part of that. I'll probably give him a 7 out of 10 for today's performance. I mean, Jamie, what did you make of Kepa?
I think that's fair. And I think, Grealish should have done better with his 1-on-1. But at the same time, Kepa did save it. So you got to give him credit where credit's due. I think that's a fair rating.
And let's move on to the back three then. Malang Sarr starting on the left of that three. We touched on it earlier that he probably deserved to play, given how well he's done in recent games. Yeah. I have to say, I thought initially he struggled a little bit to cope with the game. He was quite poor on the ball, but as the game went on, he did grow into it a little bit, and he was actually getting stuck in. He improved on the ball. He was blocking a lot of stuff. I thought he defended pretty well. And given the fact that he probably wasn't expecting to play this much first-team football for Chelsea, he has taken his opportunity, and I don't think he's done any worse than, say, a Christensen would have done today, or a Chalobah potentially could have done today. So I felt he was okay. I'll probably give Malang Sarr, I'll give him a 6. How did you see his performance?
Yeah, I think it's all the more impressive considering how many problems Alonso was having down that flank. I think you're right. I think Sarr started off a little bit shakily, but he's impressed me. I wasn't convinced he was Chelsea standard at first. I'm more than happy to have a slice of humble pie and say I think he's a good quality player. Good addition to the squad.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when he initially came in that summer when we signed Werner and Havertz as another free, I thought he was one of those that would come in on a free transfer. Chelsea would loan him out for a few years and then sell him on for a profit. But that may still happen. But he has provided value and to the squad this season with his performances. Thiago Silva, I thought the defenders weren't bad today, as we've touched on. I mean, again, he set a really high standard for himself, and I felt he dealt quite admirably with what came his way. Didn't have an awful lot to do, as we touched on. City didn't actually have that many opportunities, really. And I felt it was probably a little bit better than Malang Sarr. I'd go with a 6.5. I mean, a couple of words on Silva's performance today.
Yeah, I think because Silva has set such a remarkably high standard for himself, I think we have to be a little bit conservative with the rating in games where he wasn't one of the headline acts. Yeah. So, didn't do anything wrong, did everything well, wasn't particularly put under much pressure. I think 6.5 is probably about right. Yeah,
and then rounding out, Rudiger, again, he also had a great game against Tottenham in the week. Wasn't perhaps not as good as that today, but again, I'd probably say out of the back three, I thought it was probably the best today. Again, dealt with what came his way. He was solid. Distribution from the back is pretty good as well. And a massive plus is that actually it potentially looks like that a 360 might have occurred, and he's perhaps more likely to actually stay at the club now, which is a massive plus going forward. Obviously, these things can change on a daily basis, but it seems to have flipped round that he could be staying. But again, a solid performance from Rudiger, kind of what we've expected from him under Thomas Tuchel. I think he probably deserves a 7. I mean, how did you see his performance today?
Yeah, I think especially considering it doesn't matter how good a player is or how experienced he is. Let's remember that he's not playing right centre back week in, week out. So this was new territory for him. So yeah, he did well, and I hope he stays. As does every other Chelsea fan.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to the fullbacks today, I've got to be honest, mate. I thought Aspi and Alonso were dreadful.
Yeah.
We'll start with Azpilicueta. I don't want to criticise him. You know, the guy's been an absolute legend at the club. He's won it all. He's been here for years. He's playing right wing back because it's needs must at the moment. He hasn't got the legs anymore to get up the pitch and contribute attacking wise. And now against a certain standard of forward, he's now struggling defensively as well. I thought it was subpar today. I thought he was average at best. I mean, I'll probably give him a 4.5. I really don't think he was that great at all. I mean, what did you make of how much he struggled?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one because he's a Chelsea legend, isn't he? And he's our skipper. So you don't want to say anything too negative about him, but he struggled today. And I think if we're being honest, he shouldn't be starting in these kind of games anymore when we have all our players available. Yeah,
100%. I think when everyone's fit, Aspie, unfortunately for him, is at the point now where he's not a starter. But he's probably had to play a lot more than he was maybe expecting, a lot more than perhaps Tuchel wanted to use him, just due to the situation we're in. But yeah, not a good game for him. Having said that, though, it was better than Marcos Alonso. On the left-hand side today, he turned in a dreadful performance. I mean, I know he's often scapegoated by Chelsea fans, the first one to go to for a poor performance, but this really wasn't good today. Sterling was causing him all sorts of problems down that left-hand side. Sarr was exposed quite often as well. He didn't really offer anything going forwards either. And yeah, this again highlighted the fact that we need to get a move on and bring someone new in on that left-hand side because he was poor today. I'll probably give him a 3, to be honest. How did you see his performance?
I think that's fair. And as much as you say, Alonso is scapegoated. Perhaps he's not a world-class left wing back, but just in the interest of remaining balanced here, he's another player that's been absolutely run into the ground lately. Playing more football than he's not the most physically gifted player, is he? He's played too much football for absolute necessity, and City targeted him today, so he had a rough afternoon. One to forget for him.
Yeah, 100%. We just take that and move on. Moving to the pivot then. Obviously, Kante a shoe-in to start. I actually thought by Kante standards, this was quite an average performance today. I felt he struggled to impose himself on the game at times. Look, he does Kante things. He gets around the pitch. But I also felt that he's perhaps slightly at fault for the goal. I know initially Lukaku loses the header at the top end of the pitch, but Kante does get shrugged off by De Bruyne before he takes that shot. I feel perhaps that he could have maybe done a little bit better there if we're being super critical. But I'd probably just say a 5 today. Like, not terrible, but didn't really do anything that stood out.
To be honest, I would give them both around thereabouts, because when we consider how influential they were against Liverpool, I think that's what we were expecting here today. But they kind of just couldn't impose themselves on the game. Kovacic was lucky not to have cost us a goal with the dodgy pass to Grealish. And Kante, De Bruyne ran away from him. Kante tried to take his legs out in the end. But I don't know. It wasn't their best afternoon. I don't think you can entirely pin the blame on them. But I think you can say perhaps that's why we weren't at the races, because these two weren't.
I felt we were overrun in the middle of the park as well, quite comprehensively. But yeah, look, these guys weren't at the races today, but they've been two of our standout performers this season. And a bad game, class. And a bad game can be forgiven. I'm moving on to Kovacic very briefly. You touched on him slightly there. Not great from him today. He's given a lot of fouls away. He was booked. I thought a couple of times he was, on thin ice where he's on a yellow, and he's consistently still giving fouls away. I think he could have been maybe 1 or 2 more fouls away from actually being sent off today.
Yeah.
Again, he gave the ball away sloppy for opportunities and didn't really impose himself on the game like we've kind of expected from him. And again, it goes back to the attacking players not offering very much either. But Kovacic normally picks the ball up, drives forward from midfield. Didn't really see any of his attacking prowess at all today. So I would agree. I think he was maybe a slightly better than Kante, but maybe just by a half point. Probably give him a 5.5. But yeah, not up to the usual standards from Kovacic.
Yeah, he looks like a player that's only recently returned from a long-term injury and then got COVID. And, he played well against Liverpool and he's arguably been our best player this season, definitely up there. But I think he's another player where you have to consider the context. He's played a lot more football than he should have done coming back from an injury, which kept him out that long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that Jorginho perhaps didn't get any action.
I'm surprised he didn't get a minute.
Yeah. I thought he could have done a little bit. He could have been a game that Jorginho would have done well with. You could see we didn't really have any control in the middle of the park. And at least one thing Jorginho does do is dictate tempo from the middle of the park. He keeps possession as well. I don't think we kept possession very well today at all.
No, our ball retention was terrible. And that's what he's in there for, isn't it? I was surprised that he didn't get a minute.
We'll move on to the front three to round things out, mate. I mean, these are going to be some low ratings. We'll start with Christian Pulisic. A big opportunity to impress in his preferred right wing position from the off. Massive game. He really didn't take this opportunity at all. He didn't do anything to suggest to me that he deserves a consistent run in the team. He offered absolutely nothing. I can't remember a single thing he did. No balls into the box. I feel like I'm being quite harsh here, but it's the same for all of those attacking players. I mean, literally like an invisibility cloak on, wouldn't have really known he was there today. I mean, I think a 3 out of 10 is probably fair for his performance, and he's got to do better. He's another one that came in for big money, 60-odd million pounds. He showed glimpses, but we can't keep going back to he was good at Project Restart. That's gone now. He's done nothing now. All right, against Liverpool, he scored the equaliser, but up to that point, he was the worst player on the pitch. And today was another missed opportunity. And he's probably running out of chances to impress at Chelsea, isn't he?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he probably is. They call him Captain America. I think they forgot to fish him out of the ice today because he was nowhere to be seen. And I think that's been the story all too often with Pulisic, for a player that was bought in as a potential replacement for Hazard, as a player with a high ceiling that had the ability to kick on and be one of the leading attacking players in the Premier League. I think you're right. I think he's running out of chances, and he's definitely running out of excuses to be putting in performances like that.
Now we move to the other side. We touched on Ziyech earlier. It's a bit of a lottery what you're going to get with him. Yeah. He can bring up some magic with that left foot, whether it's a great pass or a great delivery into the box, which can create a goal. But again, today, awful. I thought, no penetrative play in that final third, no putting balls into the box, similar to Pulisic. Got shrugged off the ball easily as well. No pressing from the front, which he normally does do. I don't think he was worse than Pulisic, but I probably have to give him a 3 as well. It just non-existent again.
Yeah, just seems to epitomise everything that's going wrong with our attacking wide players. They're undoubtedly talented, but just incredibly inconsistent.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. The talent's there. We don't see it on a consistent basis. And like in a mid-table team, that's probably okay. But at Chelsea, it's not good enough when you're going for the big trophies as an attacking player to turn up every, say, 1 in 4 or 5 games. And that's what these guys are doing at the moment. They're putting in a good performance every 4 to 5 games. And that's not good enough. We move on to Lukaku. We've spoken a lot about him earlier in the stream. Dreadful today. Really poor. I'll probably have to give him a 2 out of 10 just for the fact he basically turned up and he was on the pitch. I think other than that, I can't give him any more marks for anything, Body language, terrible. Really, like what you expect him to be good at is holding the ball up and bringing others into play and relieving that pressure on us. didn't do that well at all today. I can't remember him winning many, if any, headers up against Laporte and Diaz. They're obviously a good partnership, but Lukaku's a good aerial threat. He's strong, he's big physically. Didn't do any of that. Body language, I said, was terrible. Had an opportunity that he should have done better with. Probably his worst game in a Chelsea shirt, I have to be honest, since he's come back.
Yeah, and I don't think we can say he was entirely isolated because he did have a one-on-one with Ederson, put it at a good height. It was a good save, but it was a good height. And then the first half, when he had options left and right, and he played it to Ziyech poorly while he was offside. So I think that it's good that you, as the Lukaku apologist out of us, gave him the rating because it's too high than I would have given him.
Yeah,
but, don't get me wrong. I'm highly critical of him, and I'm sure he's highly critical of himself because he is in the top bracket of strikers in the world. But we're just not seeing that level of performance from him. He's blown his own trumpet about how he's developed into this accomplished centre forward playing in Italy under Conte. And we have seen evidence of that he can be that player, particularly against Arsenal in the first game. I know we pick out Arsenal, Aston Villa, perhaps Aston Villa the second game. But he has shown that he can do it. But he needs to deliver on a consistent basis. And he needs to make the difference in games like this to justify us spending 97 million on him.
Yeah, no, 100%. He won 0 out of 7 headers. Yeah, that backs that up. Then not wasn't good enough. I mean, I said I've been a Lukaku defender, but today I can't defend that. But
no,
we move on to the next game and hope that we can find a way of just integrating him in, because as you touched on, Jamie, he's going to be important to whether we're successful or not this season, because no one else is scoring the goals.
Yeah, you don't have to forgive Lukaku for the interview, and you definitely don't have to think that he was worth the 97 million that we paid for him. But, whether you're at home or whether you're in the ground, you do need to get behind him just as you would any other Chelsea player, because how we perform and what we achieve this season, it does rely quite heavily on whether he can get into some sort of purple patch and start finding the net.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that seems like a good point to round out. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you watched live, thanks for getting involved in the chat. We appreciate it. Make sure you smash a like on the video. If you're watching live and you've not subscribed, please do click that subscribe button. Appreciate all the support, and it helps myself out and it helps the channel out. So yeah, if you've not done that, then please do that. And if you aren't subscribed in general, then click the subscribe button. Takes seconds and it really helps me out. Jamie, thank you so much for your time as always. Pleasure to talk all things Chelsea. Pleasure for your time. Guys, make sure you follow him on Twitter. I've got it across the banner at the bottom and I've linked it in the video description as well. So yeah, go on his page, follow it. Great stuff on Chelsea on there. And yeah, disappointing afternoon for Chelsea today, but we move on to Tuesday night against Brighton. We need a reaction. Thanks for all the support as always. And we'll see you in the Brighton preview on Monday night. Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers.